Hello, everybody. Well, I got it. Okay. Right. Technology. Great. Well, welcome. And this is, I think I'm filling in for somebody. Is that correct, Raz? Yeah.
Yeah, so normally this session will be held by Dina.
Yeah.
However, whilst we're getting going, this will be, Jeffrey is
Cool.
filling in.
Cool. That's fine. So it's rather extemporaneous, folks. Um, I've added a few things to the last one that I did, just because I think it's really pertinent in terms of how we deal with this product when we're communicating with people and our own knowledge of it. And looking at this first slide, it says Immunotech. Okay. The first symbol, as I said before last time, it's an antibody. But Immunotech, how did it come to the name Immunotech? Well, immune is for your immune system. And tech is a story that goes back to when Dieter Beer met Dr. Bunos. And Keith, you know all about this. It's about how they met. Now, Dieter Beer had a company when he was in Germany, and he had all of these amazing electronic products that he was bringing in from Japan and Korea. So one of the ones that I remember being in Canada was Tech. And then there was another one, what was it called? NEC and AWA. And then there was Daewoo from Korea. So I remember all these electronics coming in the 70s and the 80s. And the guy who was behind that worldwide was Dieter Beer. And he sold that company, I believe, in 83 or something like that. And eventually what he wanted to do is bring his family to Canada. But before that, he invested in a recycling firm in Switzerland. And that was interesting. So when he met Dr. Bunos was at the point where he needed to find more space to do his experiments because his tenure at McGill University was coming to a wee end. And so they needed to find some space. And Dieter Beer is this mind that is not just a businessman. He thinks outside the box. And I remember meeting him in Montreal once, and that was really cool, along with Chuck Roberts. That was really cool. And these guys are the ones that came together and formed Immunotech. And tech comes from Techniques, which is this brand that he had in Europe and then all around the world. So this is where we came to Immunotech. So I just find that quite interesting because when you read this book called Breakthrough in Cell Biology or Breakthrough in Cell Health, I can't remember the actual name of it, it gives you the whole story about what actually happened with Dr. Bunos and how he met all these people and the struggles he had to find this product called IMMUNOCAL. So I just thought that was interesting because just the name itself gives you a history of the company itself. Okay, come on, next slide, please. Let's try this button here. Yay! All right. So what protects us? It is obviously the immune system. These guys that we see here and that sort of little wee funky round looking thing with sticky out bits there called the glycocalyx, if you really want the terminology. And they're like little wee antennas. And these little wee antennas all receive different signals from different things in our immune system. So it could be many, many different signals. And with our society that we're living in today, we're polluted by so many things that are electromagnetic. And this is one of the things that is disrupting how a lot of these cells are actually interacting in our immune system. And we need a little bit of help because we're bombarded by Wi-Fi everywhere. And one of the things that Wi-Fi actually does, as a side note, it actually dehydrates the cell, which is interesting. So if we're in a field of Wi-Fi constantly, then perpetually we could be constantly dehydrated all the time, and that will then have an impact on our overall health. And then the other aspect of that is just the EMS that are created within our house. Doesn't matter whether you're in North America or here in Europe, doesn't matter. That grid that's surrounding our house has a lot of studies to show that actually can perpetuate disease. One of the biggest ones, as you get more northern in the latitude, is MS, believe it or not. So that's quite fun. That's quite kind of a funny thing to think about when you're thinking what actually protects us in our immune system. And it's it's so complicated. And I think we're just scratching the surface as mankind or humankind, whatever which way you want to address it. But it's something that we need to look at. So we need to look at how we can mitigate this oxidative stress that we're always being affected by. And when we look at these defense systems here, we have an immune system, and there's two divisions of that. And then there's the antioxidant system. Now, it's kind of interesting because this slide doesn't say it, but we make another product called Booster, the green booster. And that is a combination of 50 fruits and vegetables. And it actually stimulates a functionality within the antioxidant system that is above the working environment of our antioxidants. So you have something called NERV2 pathway here, and then that regulates all our antioxidants here. So it goes through all these chemical reactions in order to give us glutathione. And that's really what this slide is saying. We don't have to go through the science, because a lot of people don't really want to know this, or they look at this and they think, you know, like a rabbit in the headlights. It turns people off sometimes. But if you want to be geeky about it, then there's so much information that you can get from just studying that by knowing the substrates of how this whole system functions. So when we're looking at how we're trying to establish homeostasis constantly in the cell, right? And homeostasis means balance. That's really what it's all about. But as I said before, our modern day living gives us a deficit of health. And one of the things we've got here on the slide says UV radiation, contamination, stress, and deficient nutrition. Well, stress can come in a lot of different things as well. You can have stress. I would say that all of these will give you stress. And other things around this, if you look at something like an athlete, you could do overtraining as a stress. Yeah, that could create some free radical production that we're going to talk about later on. And so you're going to get all these free radicals that are bombarding our cell. And inside our cell, remember, we've got our DNA processing units in the nucleus. We've got a whole bunch of protein guys on the outside, apparatus producing proteins. And we've got the mitochondria, which is providing the cell with the power to do all this stuff. And mitochondria and the free radicals are interesting because you can have a mitochondria, which is that little wee guy where all those little wee squiggly lines are, and it's sort of kind of oval at the bottom right, about 8 o'clock. Yeah, that would be like a mitochondria, and it's producing energy. But you can have a little bit of that mitochondria not functioning, and the other half, say, functioning. And an antioxidant can come in there and help repair the dysfunctional part of that mitochondria to make it functional again. Or it can be overwhelmed and cause the whole thing to explode, and we get cell death. And there's all these different names that we have for that. So the idea being is that we want to have homeostasis. And when we're having free radicals, there's going to be good free radicals that create good signaling in a cell, and some that are very highly reactive, which create destruction. And we want to limit these guys, the destructive ones, and allow the other ones that have to signal in an inflammatory response to move the immune system into a protective mode to create homeostasis back to the cell. So I hope that makes sense there. Where are we? So we got oxidative stress. It's similar to when you've got metal sitting outside and how it rusts. That's oxidative stress, isn't it? Right? And in oxidative stress in a human can be measured as we get older by brown spots all around our body. Everyone may have thought they were liver spots. Well, that's actually oxidative stress. So we want to reduce this, but we also need it. It's kind of a catch-22. But we want to reduce the hydroxy radicals, the HO dot ones. And that's the one that's on the far side of the screen. Because with a normal cell, it gets attacked by free radicals. Then you have oxidative stress within that, and then an antioxidant will come in and restore balance sometimes. It could be too much that cell just creates a bad situation, and you get apoptosis, and boom, the cell goes, blows up. And then those proteins are then used to then formulate more proteins later on in a different pathways. So the antioxidant in this picture would give us a balanced molecule, where a free radical is not balanced because it's missing a paired electron. So it can be highly reactive. Now, if we were to mention this before, if we exercise under blue light, under fake lighting, we're going to create a singlet oxygen species. Now, this is super highly reactive. And the problem with that is that it will cause more damage than a normal free radical. So the message there is to exercise outside, because you're not going to produce that. You're going to produce a free radical in a triplet state, which is still bad, but it's not as super bad as a single oxygen free radical. And there's a lot of studies to show that. That's really, really good. But the other thing that also can stimulate that singlet oxygen free radical is blue light from just a computer. Cell phones, this stuff. Just being inside, if your glass in the windows that you've got actually filter out certain frequencies of light and only allow blue to come in, then proxy of then living inside is going to cause more free radical production of that singlet oxygen species because of just living inside and living under fake lighting. LEDs is prime example. Yep. So we need protection from these things. And this is where IMMUNOCAL really comes into its own, by protecting us. So glutathione is that one thing that creates that. It exists everywhere in the plant kingdom and in us. And if we have lots of it, we're healthy. If we have suboptimal amounts, we may have a health challenge. And if we have zero, then your immune system is really going to suffer, and the existence of you will be short-lived. So when people say, well, okay, so this product, it does something to do with glutathione. Can you show me some proof? Well, the validation of that is there are more than 160,000 studies that have been published on glutathione. And the thing with that is, I always would get patients coming in going, well, does it help with this? And I go, you know what? That's a good question. I don't know. Let's look it up. And the idea being that one lady that was menopause. And I said, you know, that's a really good one. I've not heard that one before. And it linked into oxidative stress in a menopausal woman. And I thought, well, that makes sense, because of the fact that there's a lot of hormonal changes happening at that time. And we need to address that overabundance of free radicals. And again, we can go back to that singlet oxygen state as well. We always have to think about that, because we're always inside, we're always in front of computers, every one of us. And so the more we're outside in natural light, that's going to be able to mitigate those free radicals. So glutathione and health. So this is how you just go and you use the search engine of your choice. And there's more than just Google, because they censor a lot on certain things that they don't want you to know about. So you can go on there, and there is just tons and tons and tons. There's also a website called Zero Library. And they also will have data with studies, but they also have books on glutathione and how it works. And it's free. So you don't have to buy a book. If you want to read something about glutathione, it's on there. Hopefully, most of it is. And I found that exciting. So when we're combating all of this, it looks like an army that's sieging this cell, and the cell is buckling. But then we have something that's going to help with the immune system to create strength and homeostasis back into the cell. And so we've got a lot of these free radicals, and the stimulation of glutathione for the lymphocytes. And again, it's to bring this whole thing back to homeostasis. And what's interesting is that in the immune system, what I found fascinating is that sometimes it needs less glutathione to perform a signaling process. And then sometimes it needs more. So what is that saying? Is that the immune system is actually using this as a modulator in our immune system itself, when we take the IMMUNOCAL and making glutathione, is that modulation of our immune system when we're under these certain conditions is clearly a one that, first of all, the cell is in command of that. We don't have that command. All we can do is consume the product, so we know we're making glutathione. But if we wanted to change, whether it's a signaling state or whether it's a state of survival with free radical production that's out of control, and you want to save the cell will do this. So it really is a modulary thing. And it also has these positive and negative feedbacks which go on in the body. And it's the same thing when you're taking pretty much anything. So if you take something exogenously, so if we're going to be taking I've got a supplement here. It's called glutathione, and I'm going to take this, and I'm going to feel better because I know it's going to be in my body and it's going to work. Well, we know that most of that's going to be destroyed by the digestive system. But the other thing is that people will also say, well, I can take supplements that will give me the same thing, and we're going to come back to that. But that supplement being NAC, but that doesn't create the same response that IMMUNOCAL does. And that's important because we're going to come up against that all the time when we're talking to people. And it's important to know the difference. So when we're looking at glutathione, this was coined, I think, by Dr. Gutman, where he called it an idea, which I think is really great because it's nice and simple. It's an immune system booster / I would put in there modulator, because it can do both. It is a detoxing molecule, and it is up there with melatonin as a very, very important detoxifying molecule. They are almost synergistically similar. An interesting thing about that, what is it detoxifying? Now, there's a whole bunch of things you can get in there, but one of the most prevalent things that we're exposed to are these things in our mouth that have been put in there a long time ago called amalgam fillings. Yeah. Amalgam meaning a whole bunch of different metals that are stuck inside your tooth that are leaking, and we can prove that. And if you come to Brighton, I'll demonstrate that quite easily, and how we can mitigate the damage that these things do. And that's how this detoxifies. It works by supporting the liver to get rid of heavy metals, because glutathione will bind to heavy metals quite easily. But also in the presence of melatonin, this will also do this. And it will then cause the cell to be a lot more efficient in getting rid of heavy metals. That's one of the biggest things that this detoxifies. And it stimulates a, trying to think of what it is now. It's a protein in the liver, P54, P45, P45. I think it is. I can't remember the top of my head, but that's what it stimulates this process. But it's also important with the energy, and the energy, again, it goes back to your mitochondria, because it's reducing the, if you want to call it, the exhaust of the mitochondria. When it makes energy, it creates free radicals. This is a natural thing that why we age, and we want to reduce that. And one of the things that's really cool about that is it's like putting a muffler on your system for making energy. And that's what glutathione does. And this is why then the cells can get more energy. And what's interesting about all of that, making more energy, is that where we have the highest concentration of mitochondria, it's in the brain and in the heart. And maybe, just maybe, that study that they did about autism and how it helped autistic children when they were on the product, it was a double-blind controlled trial study, in Florida. Perhaps maybe it's because they allowed the cell to function better and we got better neural connection in the brain. Possibly. Don't know. Or is it that actually glutathione in the brain can act as a neurotransmitter? That's been purported. Don't know. Researches still need to be done. But one of the biggest things we know that this thing is an antioxidant and really can save lives a lot. So with the passing of years, and we're all aging, everybody's getting older, and most of us want to maintain health. I don't know anybody who says, no, I don't want to maintain health. We want to grow old and still have the verve we had as our youth. And so one of the things that this things can do is reduce this inflammation. And that is the thing that we want to do, because inflammation really is the root of a lot of diseases. And the inflammation, it doesn't matter in what form it is, It could be from me, from being a chiropractor, it could be in a joint. And that causes a lot of irritation to the joint. People get sore backs. But what people don't realize is that inflammation can create havoc for the neural signaling of the nerve trying to send information up to the brain. And so inflammation is one of the key things that needs to be addressed. And this, again, as it says here, it opens up that whole door to illnesses. And this is what we want to mitigate. And the best way to do that is to have a good supply of glutathione in the body. So we're now entering an era of accelerated aging. Why? Well, modern living. As I said before, EMFs and the 4G, 3G, 2, 1G. There's a really good study that came out of America, and they were studying the effects with mice on the Gs, so 1, 2, and 3G. And they had to actually stop the study because it was so damaging to the mice, these frequencies, that they determined that the EMF that we are exposed to causes havoc to our system. And our system is constantly trying to adapt. And this is why the need for something like glutathione is so great. And this is why we need to tell everybody about this product. Let me just get to know one. So we have inadequate nutrition because of the soil. And then there's some evidence to show that they're messing with the feed that we put into the soil as well. The nutritional abuse, ultra-processed foods, I tend to tell people, really, if you want to eat and try to nourish your body the best, is that you eat foods that have been grown under sunlight. Or if it's a meat, then it's an animal that's free range as much as possible, where it can then have its normal feed and stuff, because then you're going to get that nutrition that our bodies crave. The sin things like alcohol, cigarettes, I would then put in there the same thing, EMFs, same way. Sedentary lifestyle, that's really, we need to just get up and keep moving. That's what we're designed to do. And lack of rest, sleep is so important, is restorative. And we need to have that to create good health for ourselves. Mental stress itself. And that creates a lot of problems. And that then can lead to nutritional deficits as well, because then people don't eat because they're stressed out. And it's a spiral. And this is why when we're talking to people, we could talk about IMMUNOCAL, but then we can also talk about the booster. At least they're going to be getting 50 organic fruits and vegetables every day when they take that, and support the cell and synergistically raise their glutathione levels as well. So chronic inflammation comes in many, many forms. And all the ones you see there, you can do offshoots from there and go on to different places with that. But the whole thing is, and this was in one of the big magazines out of America where they were talking about chronic inflammation. It's there, it's rampant, and it creates destruction within the cells and creates not a homeostatic cell. So let me just go to the next one here. Glutathione levels decrease as we age. This is natural. This is a natural thing that happens. And this is why you could look at your parents and you can then see how you're going to be aging as they do. The only thing that's different is their environment is different from your environment. And our children today, they're growing up in a very, I would say, a very highly volatile system, because we have all of these EMFs. I keep banging on EMFs because it has a huge effect on our immune system. And they are just susceptible to all of the things at a very young age as we are at our age. We grew up, most of us, outside, playing in the sun, playing outside, not inside in front of a TV with a remote control. Yeah. The big difference with that, they're producing a lot more free radicals. So they're really, because they have a lot of stem cells to burn, they're all right. They can get away with it if we call, but it will catch up with you. And so we want to look at how glutathione can be boosted as we go older, but at the same time, free radicals are increasing. And this is why we age, and this is why the cell gets to that point where it has to give up, and we lose hydration. That's another big thing about this, is that we lose hydration inside the cell, not outside the cell, but inside the cell, intracellularly. And this is a key thing that we need to address, because that is going to be really in connection with the next talk we're going to do, which is going to be with DHA and omega-3, because that's linked directly into sunlight and everything else that goes with it. So when we're looking at glutathione in health and aging, this is what happens. This is the graph just laid out slightly differently. And the idea being is that we can change this graph, can't we? We can do this by suggesting to people to look at glutathione. And we do that because we have the best product that scientifically will prove that we can raise glutathione levels. And we don't have to talk as if we're not talking truth, because we've got all the science behind us to back us up. So people say, well, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Yeah, it does work if you take it as Keith would say, it works every time, given time. So it works, guys. So increasing glutathione, how do we do it? Well, we do it by consuming stuff. And one of the ones we've got is IMMUNOCAL. Glutathione, it's actually formed inside the cell. So when we take it and it goes into our digestive tract, it's survived because of the way it's been manufactured. When Dr. Bunos was researching this product, there was one point in time where everything of his experiments failed, everything. And he couldn't figure out what it was. And he was at home. He had 2 new hip replacements, and he was trying to figure out what it is. He was racking his brains, and he just happened to watch a program, and it was some chefs, and they were talking about how the EU changed the law in pasteurization and increased it from 72 degrees to 78 degrees. And that was the key thing, that was this light bulb moment. It was, well, maybe that's it. And then there were some other things that happened that brought him onto this pathway about glutathione and the pasteurization of the product. And that's what the key thing is about this thing. This is a live product versus a whey protein that you'll buy in the shops for bodybuilders and all the other guys, those type of things. Because you can use muscle tests to actually change people's minds with this quite easily, because IMMUNOCAL is a live product. It means that the sulfide bonds between the molecule of the cysteines is still active. It's still there. And that's the important thing that we need to understand, is that the process of making this, where they take out the casein, they take out the lactose, but they still preserve the bonds between the molecules. And this is what makes it active. So it is a live product, which then you can use muscle tests, and anybody can muscle test, a very simple test to do. And then you can challenge the body with things that are not good for us. And the best thing I like to do is either have somebody with amalgam fillings put their finger on their tooth, or give them amalgam filling and hold it. Or better yet, get them to hold one of these things. They're great. Or have them look at it. It instantaneously makes them weak. What brings them back is IMMUNOCAL. The other whey proteins don't do it. Why? They're dead. They're actually pasteurized at a higher temperature. You're still going to get the amino acids, but there's no life in between them. And that's the difference with IMMUNOCAL, is that pasteurization temperature. So we got to thank these 3 guys, peoples. And Dr. Droog has written 2 books as well that are really good to read if you want to get into some super science stuff. But Dr. Bunos and Patricia Conshavin were the instigators of all of this way back in the 70s. And Dr. Wolf Droog came around and brought us a different product later on. So the effect of a whey isolate protein on the body's immune system and the defenses, proven in more than 80 studies published over 40 years, resulting in 80 patents. And I think we all know the patents. If not, there is a list that's out there that gives all the patents of all the studies that are out there. So when we're looking at bonded cysteine, these 2 molecules that are together, that disulfide bond that's down there, that's what creates the magic in this product. And this is the product that we deal with. Now, I call this classic IMMUNOCAL because it's the original, isn't it? And well, actually, the original is called something slightly different, but this is the original product, and this is will deliver glutathione every time you take this. It doesn't matter how you digest it. So we know that it's a natural health supplement, and in Canada, it actually has a natural health number, which is extremely hard to get because you have to then show how it's manufactured and the stringent controls that you have to do that with. So I believe that was done earlier on in when they were manufacturing this product. As before, it's non-denatured, so those bonds are still together. And as we know, this is the most important supplement you'll ever try. I would say it's the most important food because it's delivering 9 grams of protein every time you take it as well. And it's a food. It comes from a food source, which is cows, milk. So it's a natural health supplement, non-denatured, as we said. And we know it increases glutathione every time you take it to help with the immune system. Now, when we look at these other things, and I'll be demonstrating this in Brighton, where we'll have some other whey proteins, and we'll have IMMUNOCAL and IMMUNOCAL Platinum, and we'll demonstrate how just simple things that will challenge our immune system and how those products won't work when challenged, and IMMUNOCAL will. Why? Again, the whole thing, it's got magic inside it, the double bonds, right? So that's the difference between all of these. We've got the studies, we've got everything that's there. The other stuff, it has been bonded apart, and you'll get the amino acids, but you won't get the magic, which is glutathione. What's really cool about this product, and I love when people say, well, you know, it doesn't have studies. I said, well, it's the only non-pharmaceutical book listed in a book of pharmaceutical products. Now, that is really cool to say to people, because of the fact that they then scratch their head going, hang on, there's a natural product in a book of pharmaceutical products. How did that happen? Because it has a pharmacological action. It works. How? Well, it raises glutathione. Yeah. That alone should wake up you. And then if you're going to your doctor, like I'm going tomorrow to see a surgeon for my knee, I'll say, have you ever heard of this stuff called IMMUNOCAL? It raises glutathione. So if you operate on my knee, I'll be taking a whole bunch of this before I have the operation, and I will recover a hell of a lot quicker than everybody else does that you've ever had. Why? It's going to detox the liver for what? General anesthetics. How cool is that? So if you know somebody who's going into surgery, which I know a few of my patients, they went in for knee replacements, and I put them on a month and a half of IMMUNOCAL, and they recovered 2 to 3 months quicker than the other people who had their knee operations. It's really dramatic. I did put them in a red bed once they were able to get up and walk around, which increased the healing even more. But we know from a fact that the raised glutathione levels protected the liver, helped the liver to detox from the general anesthetics. So we need to look at aging because it's something that we all look at. The anti-aging industry is huge. It's $1 trillion business. And we want to look at how we can boost our defenses against the aging process. And it comes back to this thing called inflammation. It's constantly there for us. So then we have Dr. Wolfdorg. He added a few more special things to the classic, and this is the IMMUNOCAL Platinum. It has, again, that bonded cysteine that looks like this cartoon here, which we saw previously. And the other thing is it has CMP. Well, what's that? Well, that is cytokine modulating peptides. And what they really do is they help the immune system become a little bit more smarter, I guess is the best word for it. And this is the part where if you're trying to look at modulating the immune system, which is what it says there, whether it's going to be overreactive or underreactive, this is something that you would then look at if somebody's got situations where they've got an overreactive immune system. This may be able to bring it and calm it down a bit. They look at inflammation and they lower it, but if they find that the immune system is over responsive, they can actually possibly bring that down. Depending on the condition, it's not a panacea for everything, but it does on the whole for inflammation, yes. For certain diseases, not so much. But we got our aches and pains, which I constantly see in our office. Cardiovascular disease, why? And neurological disease, why? Where is mitochondria the most? In the brain and in the heart. Where is it we produce a lot of free radicals? In the mitochondria. So when we're talking to people and these conditions are part of their family history, then you know that you got a really good conversation with them already because of what this stuff could do, and you can then take the science behind it easily. Now, RMF, we wanted to look at how we can pH the body. And this is particularly because a lot of people are acidic from either eating different foods, over exercise, etc. So what he's put in here is a range of minerals that are in a citrate form. And this helps with bringing back that homeostasis. The other thing that the platinum has is creatine, which is specific for our athletes as well. And when we're looking at this, we could say, who is going to take platinum and why should you take it? Well, older people, I don't know. What is old, right? That's the big question. We all sit there and go, well, we're not old. But it's the physiology of the person. Somebody could be 50 years of age chronologically, but physiologically only 30 years of age. Do they need IMMUNOCAL Platinum? Yeah, I'd whack them on that because it's going to work every time, but it's going to give them a bigger punch. It's people who've got really specific immune problems, anybody over the age of 30, but also athletes. These guys need to have this product, whether you're a weekend warrior or you're a professional athlete. In the UK here, Premier League soccer, we've got Tottenham, Chelsea, and Nottingham on the product. Why? Because IMMUNOCAL, or IMMUNOTEC, sorry, is in association with Oracle. And Oracle look after elite athletes, both here in America and in Canada and in here. So it probably over on the continent and probably all around the world. I'm not quite sure, but I know they look after North America and over here. And they all recommend, all the people that are there, recommend IMMUNOCAL Platinum. Now, whether they start doing sport as a substitute or an addition, I'm not sure, but I do know that a lot of our athletes here, or a lot of Olympic athletes, use sport as well. Whether using it in conjunction with IMMUNOCAL Platinum, I don't know. Maybe Raz, you can find out about that, because that would be really good. Because then what we can do is take this to a lot of the gyms and then marry that up with, if they're working out in the inside, then you're looking at that single oxygen species, which creates more free radicals. And that the need for this product is even higher than before. So they did a clever study when they're doing the recovery and adaptation in some training camps. And what they found when they were taking this product, that the overreacting or the overreach, it says high dietary protein restores overreaching induced impairments in leukocyte or white blood cells trafficking and reduce the incidence of upper respiratory tract infection in elite cyclists. So this was a study that was done, I can't remember exactly when it was done, but it gives us an indication of how you can recover quicker, boost the immune system when you're trashing your body through exercise a lot. You're really pushing your immune system with this. And this is a really cool study that we can then use to athletes to show that when they are pushing themselves, you can have this product and assure yourself that you're going to be able to boost your immune system and lessen the deficit of the free radical damage, which would create then your DOMS, which is your delayed onset muscle soreness, which is what we get when 2 days after we've really exercised a lot and we haven't looked after ourselves like properly. So immune boosting protocols, what are they? Step one, significant glutathione biosynthesis in our cells through the use of these potential precursors. Step two, provide effective cellular nutrition and metabolic support. And with that, I would also say a good source of water that doesn't have fluoride. That was one of the biggest things that we had to add in there. Then all these combinations will make you stronger if you're consistent with exercise and not living a sedentary lifestyle, which will age you more. This will entice you to be healthier and be younger, because what we're really doing here is allowing the body to be able to combat the free radical production, which eventually does age us more. And so we want to have less aging and more fun. I guess that's really what we want to do. We're all going to age, and but I would rather age healthily as best as I can, so I could enjoy my life as I can. So when we're looking at things that happen in our life, we want to look at the brain, because one of the biggest things we all fear is Alzheimer's and dementia. I'm sure lots of people here have seen it, and it's frightening, and it's absolutely the saddest thing to watch. I watched my grandmother like this. And Dr. Dennis did this study. It was a 10-year study, and he was looking at traumatic brain injuries. And he found that people who have traumatic brain injuries, whether it's going to be from a whiplash injury or a blow to the head or some other injury, your propensity for creating creating a scenario where your cells can produce more Lewy bodies, it really starts to lead to these formations and creating more diseases within the brain. And so this study he did, I believe it was a 10-year study that he did, and he found that the protective mechanism for these cells, he used IMMUNOCAL, because he knew it produced glutathione, right? And again, brain cells very active with mitochondria, and it seemed to really prevent us going doolally when we've had these traumatic brain injuries. So this is one of the things of just being able to protect your brain from being able to not go down this route. And I would also say is that Parkinson's disease is very similar to this, right? It's an oxidative stress, something that happened in the brain, and they're producing something that is creating the destruction of dopamine within the brain, the substantia nigra. So a lot of this stuff is really pertinent to everybody who's on this call and everybody we know on this call, because this affects everyone, and this is scary, this stuff. And we've all seen this. So if you've got a kid, or you know somebody who's got a kid and they're in footy or they're in rugby or they're in boxing or whatever the sport is, I would put them on IMMUNOCAL to prevent so many things we've talked about. The oxidative stress due to free radical pooling, being inside, creating really bad free radicals in the single isolate form, creating trauma to brain tissue that will haunt them later on in life. It's a food. You're giving them a food. It's not a supplement, it's food. It's a food supplement. And the thing that this stuff does is it creates health. Now, how amazing do we have a product that has the science, creates health, but can create wealth as well? So we have three things that are so amazing with this company and this product that really wants you to be excited. That's why I'm excited about it, because I get excited because of the fact that I can tell somebody this and I know it's going to help them. And if they want to get educated within the business, that's fine. Some people don't, some people do. But we've got such a powerful product and program that I've never seen any other company in this part of the world of marketing that has that power as Immunotech and IMMUNOCAL. And you could go on and on. You go really deep in the science if you want to, but you know, most people just switch off. They just want the overview. But the overview comes when you start showing them this stuff, like this slide here, or the slide from Dr. Dennis, or if they're a footballer, taking the slides back that I got from Oracle. We've got the science. It's irrefutable, and which is really cool, is that all they have to do is take the product and try it. That's it, Raz. That's the end. Voila.
and a fantastic natural stop for this session. So thank you so much, Jeffrey. I'm going to stop the recording now. And obviously, like I mentioned,